As I was driving home earlier today, a thought struck me like lightning, which turned into a ton of research and ultimately into the episode I am sharing with you now. Actually, it started a little earlier this morning when I had a consultation with a woman, and she shared with me what her life looks like. And this is a story or some version of a story I hear every single day from amazing women. So what does her week look like? Well, her alarm goes off at 6 a.m. She's already tired before even getting out of bed. She starts by mentally scrolling through yesterday's emails and to-do list before she even gets out of bed. Then get herself ready, get her 2 kids ready, try to grab breakfast, no time, just time for coffee, get the kids to school, sit in traffic, and while sitting in traffic, feeling really anxious, thinking about her inbox, thinking about her calendar, and all the back-to-back meetings that are ahead of her. Her morning meetings that could have been emails, she feels really micromanaged, and it feels like her ideas are not going anywhere in the company. Middle of the day, she's trying to inhale lunch as quickly as she can. She feels her energy really dip, struggling to get through the rest of the day, but still dealing with a huge amount of workload. In the afternoon, she's handling the work of at least 1.5, if not 2 people, still getting slacks about quick asks, and she's thinking, who would do all of this if I wouldn't be here? Then the commute home, she is totally exhausted, but that's when her second shift starts, right? Her kids, her partner, she has aging parents, and she needs to go run errands. So she's physically present, but mentally totally somewhere else. And then on top of that, she's feeling guilty for not being more there. After dinner, she needs to check her laptop just to check on one more thing, which loses another hour to some urgent email tasks that apparently couldn't wait till tomorrow. By about 11 p.m., she's going to finish the day by scrolling through job boards or LinkedIn, feeling totally overwhelmed, thinking, I need to find another job ASAP, but actually I don't even know what to look for, and I'm too tired to even figure out what I should be looking for. Then she goes to bed, laying there thinking like, oh man, is this what life's supposed to be like? I feel like I'm just wasting 8 hours a day on this job that doesn't value me, doesn't even allow me to tap into my potential. Yes, I'm successful, but I am so exhausted. I'm so unhappy. And actually, I don't even know what I should be when I grow up. She wakes up halfway through the night, insomnia, replaying comments from her boss, and her boss is just so mean to her all the time. But then she's also worrying about layoffs, wondering if AI will wipe out her role. And then, of course, we trying to go back to sleep and be like, okay, well, great. If I go back to sleep now, I'm going to get about 4 hours of sleep. If any of this sounds like you, I just want you to know that I see you and I hear you and you're not alone. I literally hear a version of this story every single day. And the thought that really struck me today is, well, we're all, many of us are dealing with a similar problem. So what if the problem isn't us or our mindset or our resume? But what if the problem is actually the template we've been given that we're trying to squeeze ourselves into? A template that was literally designed for factory workers 100 years ago. So in this episode, we're going to pull back the curtain on where your 9 to 5 actually came from. Because isn't it just random that we're supposed to do our best work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 in the office? To me, that makes absolutely no sense. We're going to talk about why it feels so misaligned with your life now. And we're going to talk about what a different model of work could actually look like for you. One that honors your ambition, your health, and your family. So if you're tired of shooting in the dark and just taking whatever job feels safe, please stay with me. Because what we're going to do today is talk about changing the rules that we've been playing by. So this schedule that is burning you out, it was not designed for women like you. It wasn't even designed for any knowledge workers. This random Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, 40-hour week is basically a museum exhibit from the early 1900s that we've never taken off display. So when we go back to the 1800s, at that point, people were working 10, 12, or even 16-hour days, 6 days a week in factories. Workers fought and literally risked their lives for the idea of 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, and 8 hours for what we will. So the 8-hour day actually started as a victory for basic human dignity, not as some sacred productivity formula. Then fast forward to the 1910s, 1920s, Henry Ford is running a giant car factory. Think noisy assembly lines, heavy machines, man on the line doing the same motion over and over and over. And Henry Ford realizes that exhausted workers make more mistakes, quit more often, and actually cost him money. So in 1914, he moves to an 8-hour day. And then in 1926, he moves to a 5-day, 40-hour week. Not because he was a life coach, but simply because it boosted productivity and made hiring easier. He even believed that if his workers had weekends and decent pay, they'd buy more cars. So your weekend is actually a marketing strategy. So picture that world, right? Back then, there was one breadwinner, usually the man, one full-time homemaker, the woman, who was doing all the unpaid labor. Everyone at that factory worked in one physical place, on machines that you had to stand next to. Customers were local, in the same time zone. You were far away from having email, Zoom, Slack, AI. And in that world, having everyone show up at the same time, in the same building, Monday through Friday, actually did make sense. But now we're jumping 100 years ahead, today. We're juggling kids, aging parents, knowledge work, constant emails, global teams, chat pings at all hours. And then we're doing 2026 work, but on a 1920s schedule, inside a life that looks nothing like the one that the system was built around. So when you think about your 9 to 5 calendar, it is running on Ford's operating system. But your work and your life, they are not. And this becomes even more absurd when we think about everything that changed over the last 100 years. Because literally everything changed except your work schedule. So let's go back 100 years ago and imagine we're watching a time lapse of these last 100 years. Of the technology, the offices, and your life, they're all playing out at high speed. The only thing that doesn't change is your work schedule. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So our time lapse starts with seeing telephones and typewriters appear on desks, paper files stacking up, secretaries routing calls, radios in the background. All of that was brand new technology back then. Work there was still very physical, but communication suddenly became faster and faster. Then we're moving into the next era. The scene shifts, and now we're seeing glass rooms, giant office towers, rows of cubicles, and people start doing more with information, data, reports, spreadsheets, but they still all file in and out at the same time, Monday through Friday. It still makes sense. Another huge wave comes, and now we're seeing a computer on every desk, word processor, spreadsheets, slide decks. Now suddenly so much of the work happens on a screen. So you think that would change when and where we would do work. But no, we're gonna keep our Monday through Friday 9 to 5 calendar. Then the internet comes. Emails explode. All of a sudden, you can send a message anywhere in the world in seconds. And instead of walking paperwork down the hall, we're all drowning in email inboxes. But one thing that doesn't change is working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Then there comes the smartphones and cloud tools. Now your office literally fits in your pocket. You can work from a couch, a coffee shop, a kid's soccer practice. But ironically, this makes your 9 to 5 feel even more challenging because now work leaks outside of it. Then the pandemic hits. Overnight, millions of people prove that they can do their jobs from home without commuting and without being watched every minute. Maybe you've even been more productive, or you realized, wait, I don't actually need to be in this specific office chair from 9 to 5 to do my job well. And we don't stop there. Now we're hit with a wave of AI. And AI suddenly starts doing things we thought only humans could do. Drafting, summarizing, analyzing, even somewhat creating. So huge chunks of busy work can be done in minutes now instead of hours. But let's still keep the Monday to Friday 9 to 5 40-hour work weeks. We don't want to change that, right? At the same time, the life outside of work completely changed. We now mostly see two-income households. We see single parents, caregiving for kids and aging parents, health challenges, global teams in 3 different time zones, and clients who are expecting responses 24/7. But you know what? Let's keep pretending that everyone works best when they're sitting in that one specific office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And when we zoom out like that, it's absurd. And it has nothing to do with us not being able to handle it all or becoming too overwhelmed or becoming too burned out. No, we're fine. But that template that we're trying to live inside of, it wasn't built for our current reality. This is so absurd. And I want to share a story here that is still so present in my mind. When I was working in recruiting, I was at a job fair. So I drove from my office to the job fair where I was for 6 hours that day. And then the job fair finished at 4 p.m. I had to be in the office till 6 p.m. So there were 2 more hours after the job fair. So by the time the job fair closes at 4 o'clock, by the time we pack up all our supplies and everything, it was like 4:30, traffic. So I was like, okay, my house is really close to where the job fair is. Let me check with my manager if she'd be fine if I just drive home, work remotely for the last hour of the day. That gives me a lot more time because I don't have to sit half an hour in additional traffic. I have all my stuff with me. There's nothing I cannot do from home that I could do in the office. Check with my manager. My manager was like, nope, absolutely not. I'm like, okay, why? Well, I need to know where you are. I need to know where you physically are. I'm like, I have a thing called phone, and if you need me, you could call me. Obviously, I didn't say it like that, but it was a hard no. You need to be in the office. I need to physically see you, so I believe that you're working. It blew my mind at that time, and it still blows my mind. One, why would you even hire someone onto your team when you do not trust them to do the work that you're hiring them to do? And 2, what in the world makes you think that this person will do their best work sitting in this chair that you tell them to sit in at the time you tell them to sit there? It makes absolutely no sense. Okay, let's bring this out of storytelling and history class and back into your actual work week. So here's why this 9 to 5 template is especially brutal if you are a 40-something ambitious woman in corporate. As we had already pointed out, this schedule was built for factory lines. If you stood at the machine for 8 hours a day, you produced 8 hours of output. That made sense. Well, now we're in 2026. Your real value are ideas, relationships, judgment, creativity. Those don't show up on command just because it is Tuesday 10 a.m. Think about the last time you had a brilliant idea in the shower, on a walk, or late at night. But then you spend your official workday stuck in useless meetings, too drained to actually act on the great ideas you have. The system treats you like a machine that you turn on at 8 a.m. and you turn it off at 5 p.m. But, newsflash, you are not a machine. And your best work is not linear. So the model we're working in assumes that everyone's brain and body peak from 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. But how is that even possible? Maybe you're dealing with perimenopause and your sleep is wrecked. Maybe you're a night owl and you get super creative after 9 p.m. Maybe mornings are extremely stressful with daycare drop-offs, dealing with your kids or teenagers. And in the evening, you are responsible for caregiving for a parent. If that is your life, your stress compounds because the first half of your day is getting your kids where they need to be, getting to the office, fighting traffic, trying to snack some coffee. By the time your brain finally arrives, it's almost ready to leave again, and you end up feeling like you're failing. When in reality, you're doing more than anyone actually could possibly do. And it's a schedule that ignores how your energy and how your responsibilities actually work in 2026. So when this model was designed, it assumed someone else at home was cooking, cleaning, managing school, appointments, and emotional labor. Wouldn't that be nice? But the reality is that actually you're doing two jobs. You're working full-time and you're also having a second invisible job running a household and a life. You're on a Zoom strategy session while Instacart is at the door, your kid's school is emailing you about a form that you forgot, and your parent's doctor is calling about labs. Talk about multitasking. And then, of course, your 9 to 5 feels insanely stressful because it was literally designed on the assumption that someone like you didn't even exist in the paid workforce. And then, now you're judged on how fast you respond, how often you're in meetings, how visible you are. But people don't really notice the quiet, deep work that actually moves things forward. The work that you excel at. And yes, I know you stay late to be a team player. You answer messages at night so no one thinks you're slacking. And then you lie awake feeling like you didn't do anything that actually matters. And I'm guilty of that. I can list all the things I didn't get to by the end of the day. And the biggest problem here is that we are all exhausted from performing work instead of being rewarded for the impact that you know you can make. So whenever you catch yourself judging yourself for not being able to do it all, please take a deep breath, pause for a moment, and just know that if you feel like you're failing at this, it is simply because the model was never designed for you. You've actually been succeeding in a game that was rigged for a totally different life stage, gender role, and economy. And the feeling that you're failing is actually your body and your brain finally calling BS. And you are most definitely not the problem here. The template, the system, the setup, that is the real problem. So now comes the question, if this model was never built for you, what would a work life look like that actually is? So if the old template doesn't fit, let's just stop trying to fix you and instead design a work life that actually fits our lives in 2026. Think of this as a design brief for your next chapter, not just for the company, but for you, placing you at the center. So let's start by imagining that full-time is 30 to 32 hours, not 50 disguised as 40. That could look like 40 weeks, or maybe even seasons where you intentionally dial up or down instead of running at max all year. We know that shorter weeks can maintain or even increase productivity when they're designed well. There's been a trial in Iceland that was conducted 2015 to 2017 and involved 2,500 workers, who reduced their hours to 35 to 36 per week without pay cuts. The result? Productivity and service levels stayed the same or rose, while stress decreased. There was also a 2022 UK pilot with 61 companies and 2,900 workers that saw a revenue rise by 1.4%, which is actually a 35% versus prior year's rise. Staff turnover dropped by 57% and 92% of firms continuing the model. And Microsoft Japan's 2019 4-day week trial reported a 40% productivity boost through efficiency measures. When we shorten the work week, your time becomes more precious. When we shorten the work week, your time becomes more precious, more focused, and more intentional. And that is so much more valuable than sitting there for 8 draining hours a day. Next, instead of the butts and seats 9 to 5 rules, your work should revolve around clear outcomes and deadlines. Wouldn't it make the most sense for you to choose when you work best? Early mornings before the house wakes up? School day blocks? Or a couple of deep focused evenings if you're a night owl like me? Yeah, we will always need hours that overlap with other humans so that we can have meaningful meetings and discussions. But there is no point in being chained to a schedule that ignores our energy, our health, our family, our schedules, our responsibilities. And in this version that I am imagining, the office is a tool and not a mandatory place that you need to be chained to for 8 hours a day. Some people can go in every day because that's what energizes them. And others might go in once a week to collaborate or to feel the buzz of being around people. And the rest of the time, you work from wherever you can focus and actually live your life. You're not proving your value with badge swipes. Why would we do that? We need to prove our value with the results we're generating. And we generate the best results when we're allowed to work when and where we can do our best work. Now here comes AI. I'm gonna do a separate episode on AI, but let's just start with AI isn't this huge, big, scary thing coming for your job. I'm gonna break this all down for you in a separate episode. But what I want you to see AI as is that it's kind of the intern or the researcher or the junior assistant that you always wished you had. It helps you draft emails, outlines, slide decks, pulls research, summarizes meetings, so that you can spend more of your limited hours on strategy, mentoring, creativity, and actually making an impact. So instead of AI being a reason to work more for the same pay, it's actually what makes it realistic to work less while delivering at the very minimum the same, but most likely more value. So now if we look at these two modules side by side, the old one and the one we're envisioning, it sounds something like this. In the old model, we're working 40 fixed hours every week no matter what. In the new model, we work fewer but more focused hours that flex across our seasons of life. In the old model, we're sitting in the office, and we prove that we're serious by being seen. In the new office, we get to work hybrid, remote first, and use the office when it actually helps and is needed. In the old model, we spend endless hours in meeting and are expected to always provide an instant reply. In the new model is built around async work, fewer but better meetings, and clear written decisions. And the most important thing is the value. In the old model, value is measured by the hours you are present and the hours that you are sitting in the office. But the new model measures your value by the outcomes, the impact, and the quality of what you create. The old model assumes that there's one schedule that fits all, no matter what. But the new model recognizes that your energy, your body, and your responsibilities are unique, and that that's something to design around instead of trying to squeeze you in a one-size-fits-all box. Now, we don't have to fix the entire corporate world tomorrow. I wish we could. But what we can do is start asking ourselves important questions. If this is the kind of week you want to live in, what are the kinds of roles, paths, or businesses that line up with that? Instead of forcing yourself back into a calendar that was never made for you in the first place. So let's bring this all the way down to your next 6 months and make that practical. If you're at a place where you're serious about a career change, this isn't just interesting theory. Those are questions you can literally use to design your next role. And before you even touch LinkedIn or update your resume again, pause and start by designing the week you actually want. How many hours a week feel sustainable for you? 30, 32, 35? What time of the day are you actually at your best? What time of the day? When do you want to work? Early mornings, late nights, school day blocks? How many days do you realistically want to commute? Never? 1, 2, 5 days a week? And how many meetings a day feel like your max before you are completely drained? Write this all down. This is going to be your template. And every opportunity you consider has to pass this test first. And before you tell me, stop dreaming, this isn't realistic, I want to give a shout out here to companies like Buffer, Wildbit, Kickstarter, and Basecamp that have publicly committed to a 4-day or shortened work weeks, along with the many smaller organizations that are quietly redesigning work around humane hours and real flexibilities. And I also want to give a shout out to the async first fully remote pioneers like GitLab, Automatic, Zapier, Doist, and Buffer for proving that you can build high-trust, low-meeting companies that span time zones and are still thriving. So now once you know the week you want, you can then ask, what are the vehicles that can carry me there? There are different options. Maybe this is a fully remote role in L&D, people ops, or content where you mostly work async. Maybe it is a 40-week role at a values-driven company, even if the title looks different from what you've done in the past. Maybe it is independent consulting or a portfolio of part-time contracts so that you can control your hours more directly. So instead of just asking what jobs are out there, the question now becomes, what jobs exist that actually fit the life that I am designing? And this is where you make the math work. Ask yourself, if I can cut the busy work with AI, what could my days actually look like? What about using AI to draft first versions of emails, outlines, presentations, and you just do the final 20% polish? Or using AI to research industries, summarize articles, and prep for interviews or stakeholder meetings? Or you could use AI to handle scheduling, reminders, and follow-ups so that your brain is freed up for the deep work. And your earning power comes from your judgment, empathy, and creativity. It does not come from manually doing every low-value task. To share an example from my own business, I have an amazing social media specialist, Laura. She is just absolutely incredible. And for example, when I ask her to write a blog, I do not care if she writes that on Monday at 9 a.m. or on Wednesday at 10 p.m. or on Saturday at noon. I really could not care less. I want the best final product. And she can do that whenever she works best and wherever she works best. I only care about the output that she produces at the end of the day. And why wouldn't everyone want their employees to do their best work and choose when and where they do that, so that in the end, you have the final product? Of course, we're clear on specific outcomes and timelines. And that is exactly the kind of flexibility I want you to start demanding for yourself. So here's your homework to do after this episode. And it's simple, and I have a download guiding you through all of it. First, write out your ideal work week. What are the hours, the location, the amount of meetings? Where and when do you feel energized? And then start brainstorming 3 to 5 vehicles that might match that week. What are the types of roles, industries, or business models? And third, make a list of ways that you can use AI and systems to cut your busy work in half, even inside your current role. And I have that download ready for you at 𝗪𝗵𝗁coaching.com/episode 90. Of course, we're going to link to that in the show notes. And that is going to be your tool for moving from, yep, I feel stuck and I am certainly not keeping up with the unreasonable amount of demands coming at me from all different angles, to, I'm designing the next chapter on purpose. And don't worry about having figured out the perfect job title yet. Let's start with the life and the week that you actually want. And then we'll build the career around that, not the other way around. As we're coming to the end of this episode, I really want you to know that if you're feeling so stressed and so overwhelmed with everything going in your life, it has nothing to do with you failing at all of this. And it has everything to do with you spending 10, 15, or 20 years trying to succeed inside a system that was never built for you, and it was never built for 2026. You've been doing what you were told. Work hard, be a good teammate, say yes to everything, be grateful for having a good job. But that system was designed for a different era, a different life, a different version of the ideal worker. And you've been outperforming inside it anyway. So your exhaustion is not a failure, but it is a sign that you've outgrown the container that you were handed. So that restless feeling, the Sunday night dread, the question, is this really it? The sense that you're wasting your potential, that is anything other than you being ungrateful or indecisive. That is really important data. And it's evidence that you're ready to stop being a good worker in Ford's system and start being the designer of your own career. And you're not as lost as you might think you are. You're starting to notice that the map you were given no longer matches the life that you actually want. And the good news is you don't have to figure this out alone, staring at job boards at 11 p.m. Yeah, I know that one isn't fun. Because this is exactly the kind of work I do with women like you every day. And to help you take the next step, I have a free masterclass that walks you through how to make a successful career change step by step. The link for that is also in the show notes. So if you've been telling yourself, I should have figured this out by now, consider this your permission slip that now is the right time. Not someday, not when things calm down, because they won't. Now is the time. And of course, don't forget to join me again next week for another episode full of insights, inspiration, and actionable advice on finding a career you love. Because you shouldn't, and you really, really don't have to settle. Keep chasing what makes you come alive, and I'll see you back here next week on Career Clarity Unlocked. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Career Clarity Unlocked. If you're feeling stuck in that what's next spiral and are ready to finally break free, let's chat. You can book your free Career Clarity call where we'll uncover what's really important to you, tackle any obstacles holding you back, and map out your best next step. Schedule your free 30-minute call today on 𝗪𝗵𝗁coaching.com. And before you head out, be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss an episode. If today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration, please leave a review. It really helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend or on social media. Your support truly means the world. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.